The topic of the next panel discussion is the power of data. Is it enough? Let me explain a little about that, explore whether the abundance of data in advertising is sufficient for effective ROL campaigns. This discussion will assess if over-reliance on data and programmatic approaches might be overshadowing the need for value-driven strategies and calculated risk. To discuss on this particular topic, we have our industry experts present along with us, and along with you all, let's welcome our distinguished panel members, Abhinay Bhasin, Senior Vice President, Product and Technology, dentsu India. Very warm welcome to you, Abhinay. May I request you to please take a seat on the dais. Welcoming our next panel member, Kushal Sanghvi, Chief Mentor, NitiAayog. Inviting our next panel member, Neha Chimbulkar, Head of Marketing, APAC and EMEA, Quora. And this session will be moderated by the session chair, Ananya Mathur, Senior Client Director, Ipsos, India. So today, in this panel discussion, we will be discussing on the power of data. Is it enough? Well, we will be exploring on this topic, and on this note, Ananya, over to you.
Thank you so much. And the power of data, like we were also discussing before coming on stage, and we were having a good round of discussion outside, so I hope it'll be an even more fruitful one here on stage. So with that, let me quickly get into it, and I'll start with Abhinay, you, because you are into one of the biggest agencies, if I were to say, in the world. So Abhinay, to start with, how has data reshaped the traditional creative, or let's say communication overall, in this entire process? If you could please elaborate on that.
I think that's a good question, again, taking from the discussion we were having inside. It's more like revalidating gut in some ways, right? So we're talking about how do you discover audiences, how do you keep a pulse of how behavior is really changing, and then how do you bring that into marketing strategy? How does that influence creative? How does that make data-driven creative come alive, or reaching right addressable audiences, right? So I think that data is definitely created at a way faster pace than it has ever been in the history so far. It's being processed at a tremendous scale, and I think just the sheer volume of signals that you can get from different sources, OTT, video viewership, behavioral insights from Facebook, from Google. I think there's just a lot that you can do that shapes up consumer understanding and then feeding into the creative process, the marketing process, the advertising process altogether.
Okay, if I were to say what would be, let's say, that one key difference from traditional to now. See, I understand it's data and therefore you're able to target the consumer better. Is it about getting too niche, or is it about, therefore being able to generalize more? Means, how does that help you?
I mean, I definitely think precision marketing is coming into the forefront. Your understanding audience is a lot sharper, but I think it's also about getting that balance of casting a wider net, understanding where behavioral trends are really moving, right? And I think that that's what data really enables you to do. You can go as narrow focused or wide focused as you like, dependent on your brief. And I think the fact that you have a lot more signals. So when you talk about differences from what used to happen before and now, I think the sheer processing, like I said, the intelligence that you can get, the behavioral signals that you're getting from platforms, and then using that to influence and shape up your marketing strategies, I think that that's been a key difference in driving us into the future.
Okay, great. Kushal, in your case, how do you assist the government, in terms of your association with NitiAayog, in being able to target and communicate at a real ground level? Because there are multiple schemes, they are like targeted to specific people. How do you go about that in assisting the government there?
I think, let me just start by saying that I think one of the largest initiatives the government did many years ago was to give us a single identity. I don't think any country in the world of and a database of about 943 million people with Aadhaar card. That is our identity. That is the government's data of all of us. I don't think any company in the world, no Google, no Facebook, no anyone has that sort of knowledge of consumer behavior, consumer whatever as well, because everything today is linked to your Aadhaar. What is now happening is that please realize that while in this phase of sort of digital India and Mr. Modi's sort of vision, the entire, I think, sort of journey is now to sort of facilitate other businesses through companies and associations like NITI or others as well in the government to try and just leapfrog. The reason I'm sort of sharing this is because the fact is almost any new company today, needs sort of government support. And we do believe in a country like us where, almost every day there are about 5 or 6 new sort of startups coming out as well. There's a fair amount of sort of government support which comes in. And when I say that, it's not just about because of the fact that, startups is something which is a fad today, but it is something which I think as culturally we're imbibing as well. Having said that, I think, just try and look at the sort of initiatives the government has done, again, to sort of look at data not as a way to sort of, I think, create opportunities of monetization, but just to sort of create a sort of a holistic environment. So UPI, for example, is another one. Yeah. How would have ever someone thought, say, for example, even 10 years back, that you could actually have one single channel? From that, we've seen a sort of platform like RuPay develop as well. So these are just 1 and 2 and 3, and these are just sort of wheels in motion. Today, I'm sure a lot of people have tried doing campaigns, as marketers on platforms like Paytm, PhonePe, and many others as well. And not to sort of say that the government was to sort of, I think, really push it out and sort of, I think, give that out to sort of do monetization, but there are enough opportunities that today, for example, with co-partnerships in place, that I could do a similar activity for a marketer utilizing the power of the UPI data, some e-commerce platform, something else, to add to just what Abhinay said as well, right? Sort of think about the fact that I think audiences are pretty much every single place. We have so many data points as well. But I think what you're trying to sort of capture really is that how does it suit best? So imagine adding so many layers, and with this sort of data, which is sort of really truthful, what happens is sort of in a lot of places, you might not necessarily leave legitimate, factual, right data, but you can't fib the government.
True, very true.
And I think just to chime into what Kushal was saying earlier, right? I mean, think of the tech stack that India has just built. You're talking about ONDC powering commerce. You're talking about payments through UPI at a massive scale. You're talking about identity through, again, Aadhaar and endeavors like that, right? So I think it's very much a startup now coming into an enterprise stage, and really the right investments of understanding audiences, consent taken very early on, and then just creating that very solid foundation on top of which a lot of businesses will sort of thrive in.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. And Neha, to you now, with so much data available around, and for you it's all like people, they are sharing their own thoughts, their own things. So how do you determine what is relevant and what isn't? How do you do that sieving out process?
Thanks. And, it's a pleasure being here, and that's a great question. So, coming from a user-generated platform, there are a lot of ways that we recommend that advertisers navigate the abundance of data that is available today. So, it's a mix of strategy and the analytical tool that is available. Mm-hmm. One most important aspect is that once you define your clear objective, this helps in identifying which metric, which data points are most relevant to achieving those. Mm-hmm. And I've always used cohorts and data segmentation. So whether it is using GA or Adobe Analytics, over a period of time, it's helped me understand what content or communication or insights I need to serve to a particular data set to be able to get them to engage with the content that I'm serving. Because, at the end of the day, there may be immense, amount of data available to me, but if I do not sell a product or service which is not relevant to me, like we were just speaking inside, that is like deflection, and it's not ROI driven, and marketing today is ROI driven.
Correct.
So the other thing over a period of time at Quora we've learned is utilizing ML, machine learning. Mm-hmm. So, we have these LLMs in place where whether we are using an IBM Watson or we are using the Quora internal machine learning, where we are making sure that the content that is served is personalized, and this is personalization at scale that is happening out there. So, over a period of time, continuous A/B testing, and therefore serving relevant content and pivoting, because at the end of the day, you may think that a particular data set is working for you and this campaign is working for you, but if you're not able to take a step back and pivot and A/B test, then you are just not able to leverage your data in the positive manner.
Okay, so it's essentially around testing it out, being there for your consumer, making it more relevant and contextual to them.
Absolutely. Contextual marketing today or behavioral targeting are the two important elements. So even like on Quora, if you see, you can target people with topics that they are most leaned into. And that even if someone has interest or shown interest in buying a particular product or a service, you are able to today, all platforms, not just us, all platforms give you a back history where you're able to essentially serve ads which are relevant to them and their interest.
Sure. And Neha, you very nicely mentioned around the ROI. So would one of you just choose to share your thoughts around the ROI that is generated from these campaigns which are based on data-driven, creativity, and how do you go about that?
Okay, awesome. I think it's a area of passion, but also a nerve for a lot of advertisers. But I think the way you look at it, right, is that signal intelligence, again, when you're talking about behavioral understanding or contextual signals, signal intelligence has really come back into the forefront. Even when Google was talking about a privacy-first world through cookieless advertising or any of the platforms that sort of gravitated towards that, you're talking about increasing signals through first-party data or through contextual relevance. And I think that when you get the pulse of a consumer, understanding them early on in terms of understanding their need state or their mind state, whether they're just browsing or they're just interested in making a purchase or have made a purchase, when you actually use that signal in your campaigns, I think the effect that you're going to see has been a lot more higher. And I think one way is to look at it as, of course, am I getting more ROAS? Am I getting lesser cost per clicks and so on and so forth, depending on your marketing objective? But also to address the cost of media inflation is where I think using these signals has sort of made a comeback into the forefront.
Yeah, and just to add to that, while it is important and there's always a battle between ROI-driven marketing and whether your campaigns are working well for you as a marketer, user feedback is very, very important. So while you will focus on ROI-driven marketing, using survey-based tools to a small audience set to, essentially understand whether this particular campaign has worked well or no, will always allow you to go back, with a constructive lay of the land on, okay, I have been able to get my leads and my conversions and engagement, but at the end of the day, what is the user thinking about my campaign? So that is also something that we rigorously follow quarterly, where we are running survey-based campaigns or essentially understanding whether each of our campaign has performed, not performed. What is the user thinking about it?
Sure. So while we are talking so much around the data behind whatever you're doing, your choices, your decisions, the route you take, somewhere do you think that brand storytelling or the value proposition, what you wanted to communicate, going back to your, initial thing about the gut. Where does that play a role? Where does that go? Kushal, you want to take this?
I'm going to try and just, I think for the benefit of the audience as well, try and just, by raise of hands, just tell me one of your favorite brand campaigns in the last 1 year. Let's take 2 or 3 answers. Any ad you guys loved a lot in the last 1, 2 years? 6 months, last 2 months? You guys can't think of, right? Anyone can think of the Cadbury ad with the girl going into the field and dancing? Yes. Anyone remembers the sort of ad that, we got the first Cannes award for, which was the sort of Ericsson, one black coffee? Maybe a different audience. We're sort of becoming dinosaurs for sure.
Kushal, I think there's someone.
Yeah, but there's someone saying yes as well. So the point I'm trying to draw is that we've got so obsessed by numbers, data crunching, ROAS, and so many other things that we've forgotten that advertising and branding is storytelling. You've got to make me feel for your brand. You've got to have a goosebump rush. All of us at some point, some of us or whoever is in branding, advertising, we love seeing Super Bowl. At least I can talk about myself because I love to see the ads. Yeah. Imagine, for example, the PepsiCos and the Mars and all those big lovely brands, they spend obnoxious amount of money for that one ad to come out and it creates ripples. We don't do that any longer in India. We've got so into this whole thing of either moment marketing, getting onto sort of catching what trend and all that. We sort of have lost that essence. So I would wish that, yes, while we're in this whole thing of data, I wish that maybe we also get the likes of new Prasuns and new Piyushs and new other people to join in the fraternity today and work closely with data scientists to make sure that creativity and data can work together to perhaps create another person, another film which sort of creates as much sort of zest and fun which the girl did on the cricket field.
I so agree to what you said, Kushal, because I'm from that dinosaur generation, of course, where I remember the jalebi ad. Remember the boy going out.
Dalda.
Dalda.
I don't think the audience remembers a brand called Dalda, but if you guys can Google it up, please look at
Sir, recently,
jalebi, and you might get the ad on YouTube.
Recently, I have watched this Swiggy Instamart ad. If you remember, the customer was ordering chawal. By mistake, they have written chawla. So the the delivery boy went to the Juhi chawla. Then they picked her. Then again, it was a spelling mistake. That's a very incredible ad. If you remember, that's it. Swiggy Instamart. Recently, they have launched.
Sure.
Of course.
They have that series where it's been
chawla. So they put chawla instead of chawla.
Yes.
Yeah, so they have picked up Juhi chawla.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
there's a groom and broom to that also.
That's.
So she wants to order a broom and she types a groom and they go and get a groom from somewhere and then, But somewhere the nostalgia, the connect with those films and what it did to the brand. Somewhere I feel, that identity that creatives that time built, whether it was the Pepsi launch ad in India, which was in a way the first over here with Juhi Chawla and Remo. Those were the films kind of films we don't see anymore. But yes, data has become really important and we are piggybacking on it. Somewhere, I'm not sure, do we say that creativity in all of this is getting killed?
I think it's an interesting point of view, but it's not really all data's fault. I mean, data just helps you with the signals, right? But essentially what you're doing today is you're marketing for attention. If you look at the amount of attention that we have, and now people are talking about, Dentsu actually pioneered attentive reach and focusing on optimizing for that, is that with ephemeral content, you're trying to capture 20-second, 30-second windows, or even lesser, just trying to get a message across. So now think of the entire era of brand marketing where you used to make large films that would come on a Super Bowl or on television or on your cricket matches and so on and so forth, now being reduced to like a 10-seconder that you have to just try to get your message across, get that brand love and get an action from it. I think the way the consumer behavior has actually shifted is actually prompted through this. See, data and all of that is just tools to sort of empower you, to give you a little more understanding or express more understanding about audiences. But ultimately, you're going after that premium real estate of 6 or 7 inches that everyone is holding today, and then trying to get a point across amongst like thousands of other people who are trying to fight for that same person in the 5 or 10-second window.
Yeah, and it's not like brands over a period of time are understanding that there has to be the brand recall via a brand campaign. So they're splitting their marketing budgets in 2 parts. One is where you create a brand film for that recall value. And then, like Abhinay rightly mentioned, that I have only 15 seconds or 20 seconds to urge you to download my app or get that conversion. So while you have data available, but it is how you split your marketing spends and strategy to achieve both these objectives. So let's take Canva, the latest ad. They've been like driving awareness about how you can use their resources. But at the same time, you will see download the Canva apps also, the campaigns running on all digital platforms. And then you have your ATL campaigns and your YouTube campaigns where they're running the brand film, which essentially it is, Dil Se, Dil Tak campaign. So, it's up to the marketer, like he rightly pointed out, that how you split the 70-30, 50-50 ratio of your budgets. And of course, explaining to your management.
Great. That's a good point said. Okay, so Neha, I'll continue with you that does current technology that is available help elevate a personal connect with the consumers? Or does it make it a little robotic in nature? Because everything is pretty targeted. This is what the person is looking for, and then you're, just targeted. So what's your take on that?
So I come from a platform that offers, PO, which is Platform for Open Exploration, which has multiple chat bots and multiple AI tools available all on one platform. So imagine for me today, marketing in a world where I can personalize whatever communication that I want, well ahead, plan ahead with my data and plan my entire year's social calendar as well as my marketing calendar basis that data. So, today, I think with the power of AI, you have lot of customization available. And it's also happening at a scale that is unimaginable and at the speed. Today, it takes me probably, 10 seconds with a prompt to create a whole campaign. And at the end of the day, even roll out that campaign versus what I needed like a long period of time to conceptualize, copyright, create the headline, body copy, and then, implement it within a, design ecosystem. So I will use a chat GPT. Then I move on to a DALL-E for my ad creatives. And then I'm putting it on Hootsuite for distribution. So, that entire ecosystem has become extremely smooth. Also, just to give you a little bit more understanding, it is, for me, at least, it's become more human-centric because I have my cohorts in place. So I am not disseminating data that is not relevant to you. My campaigns are extremely. So Marketo allows me to build my customer segment as per my need or the product or the service that I am delivering. Sure. So I think over a period of time, at least since 2022, since we've launched PO, and understanding the Quora user sentiment, we are able to serve information or run campaigns which have been extremely relevant to the audience, and rather it's more personalization than mechanical at the moment for us.
Correct. Get it. You wanted to add something?
I think I'm completely
in agreement. Yeah. Okay. So Kushal, to you. How does the government, incorporate risk and experimentation into their strategies to bring in that human element in place when you're reaching out to the different audiences?
I think what happens in terms of the government trying to create campaigns and reaching out to audiences at large is there's never, it's exactly like I think let's face it that the government is no different from PepsiCo or Unilever selling soap or candy as well. At the end of the day, they also sort of need to speak to an audience. They need to sort of get some sort of a engagement, a sort of a hand up, and a certain buy-in as well. And I think having said that, the challenges are even larger because the fact is today, because of the way we always look at sort of people and individuals, we tend to look at the government as figureheads. And I think that becomes a very large challenge for, I think, the government at large to sort of, I think, be able to address itself as a sort of a all for one, and it's not a one-person thing. So I think the challenge which I think as the government, I think we take in a lot of initiatives is that to try and massify it at some level, but the fact is also people want to sort of, I think, engage at a personal level. So which is why you'll see a lot of initiatives that the government is taking. So today, for example, I'll tell you, for example, there are initiatives the government has taken that for the farmers in smallest of villages, there are apps now where he or she can just, at the click of one finger, can sort of, I think, just make sure that his field has got water. Not just that, the fact is, immediately, for example, there are notifications which come to him in a language which he understands, and he knows that it's now time for him to sort of put out certain manure. Now think about it, that imagine a farmer today is getting all of it ease. It's also personalized, and he feels that it is Mr. Modi talking to him. Now that's the gratification that he has at the connect that he sort of builds, and I think these are the kind of things as sort of the government which needs to sort of understand that, at the end of the day, this is no different for Amazon pretty much selling something to Abhinay or yourself and sort of making you feel good about that product which you bought, right? How different is it? So that's the thing. It's just that the magic needs to sort of, I think, happen. The power of data comes in the middle of it because the fact is you need to have that tone. And I think that's the greatness of, I think, marketing, that I think, you don't really sort of, I think, make it sound sort of like you know too much about that person, yet make him feel good. Yeah, because the moment you start to feel that, hey, I know so much, you'll feel like, oh God, someone has really invaded my privacy. And then, of course, we know all the possible chatter around GDPR norms and data and security and all of those things as well. So keep it easy, keep it to a level where someone can relate to you. And I think if you can do that, I think the magic happens.
Well said, well said. Abhinay, one question to you now. How reliable is the data that is available around for brands and marketers today?
So I really think it depends on the source for which you're taking a particular information piece, right? Like, for example, if I'm thinking about the kind of content that we consume on video, I would think that strong sources would be your OTT platforms, would be YouTube video, for example, right? So each platform is collecting some amount of sliver of our lives, because if you look at us as individuals, right? I mean, for food delivery, I have 4 apps. For content consumption, I have another 4 apps. For getting information, of course, we have your Googles and your native browsers, but you also have your chat GPTs now trying to give you some sort of understanding, right? And then you spoke about Poe a little earlier, right? So I think that it depends on what source you're going to get that piece of relevant information. And then how do you piece that together, which is where a lot of research agencies also come into the forefront, right? Like, how do you then make sense of a lot of this messy data to actually then give you like a well-defined audience understanding, and then sort of utilize that for either creative effectiveness or media targeting or whatever that might be.
Sure, sure. So now a common question to all of you is, therefore, leading on from that question itself and what you responded, so are we seeing a lot of trust in the data that is available now? And in terms of like you said, that research agencies and they are stitching it together. What are the other steps, let's say, that you're taking in order to take care of the accuracy of the data, the sanctity of the data, your reliability over it?
So I think it's very important that we inculcate data literacy amongst the users of this data, because at the end of the day, you may have information available, but one has to understand the limitations and biases. So, for instance, if a brand solely is relying on survey data without considering, bias or misinterpretation while the question is asked to them, that is when inaccuracies step in. And it can essentially affect the final decision on how you will use that data. And I think over a period of time, at least in our organization at Quora, critical thinking is something that is encouraged. So while you may have a lot of data available to you, it is important to be critically aware of how you want to utilize it, whether you really want to implement it or take a step back and probably do a second round of analysis before you run your campaigns.
That's a nice point. Would you like to add in, Kushal?
I can just add that, we have tons of data. Literally I think almost every organization picks various buckets of it to pick up more and more inferences, get deeper, all that as well. And I think that's a norm now. I don't think there's any marketing which can be done without some science which is back to it as well, right? But let's face it that at the end of the day, there's got to be some human intelligence. There's always the question that people talk about in terms of with so much of data, things becoming easier, AI and some stuff, but the human mind is just so important. Not all of us feel that you can negate. And that's why, for example, what differentiates a good marketer versus an average marketer is that he puts some sort of his insightful mind to create just that something which makes it feel like, wow. And then there's a ripple effect and people talk about it. And I think that's where I think we should leave it at, that let's not get so granular. Use the data, but then make your own thoughtful way of interpreting that to create some sort of a way to connect with audiences.
Perfect.
And I think I want to echo what Kushal also said earlier, right? Like, it's important to look at it as a point of truth, giving you a direction into something, but not like the end of it in that sense, right? Of course, there is a human intelligence that gets coupled up with the artificial intelligence to then create a rounded experience, right? And I think that that's very important to sort of take a look at it, that it's just one source of information, either validating your gut or questioning it a bit. But I always use this superhero analogy, right? Like when you talk about data or artificial intelligence, it's just making the Tony Stark a little more alive to making them the Iron Man. And I think that that's where technology or data or information actually comes into the forefront. How does it augment human endeavor and intelligence rather than replace it?
Great, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the insights and enriching thoughts that you all three shared over here. I think the key thing, therefore, we could say that the power of data, like we discussed over here, one of the key things that comes out is to be able to connect with your consumer and connect to them in a way which is meaningful to them, relevant to them, and take it ahead from there, right? Of course, like Kushal again mentioned, the power of AI plus HI. Thank you all so much, and thank you, audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our panel members for sharing their insights and making it such an interactive session for all of us. I'm certain that we all have had our share of take and piece of knowledge. May I request all the panel members to please step ahead for a group photo op. And we are truly honored and thankful that you all joined us today and shared your experience along with us. Thank you, panel members. Thanks a lot.